Jai Hind children. This is module number 3 of the chapter Mughal Empire, and in the previous module we had discussed about uh, the various Mughal emperors, and we had also discussed about the Mughal relations with the other rulers, the Mansabdars and the Jagirdars. So in this chapter we will be dealing with Zabt and Zamindars. So let us proceed. Now what is Zabt? We all know that the main source of income for the Mughals was tax, and which was obtained from the peasants. And these peasants paid taxes through rural elites, that's the headman or the local chieftain. Now, the Mughals were the first people who used the term zamindars, and these were those people who were very powerful. Now, how was this tax collected? Akbar's revenue minister, that's Todar Mal, he carried out a careful survey of crop fields and for a period of 10 years, that is from 1570 to 1580. And on the basis of this data, tax was fixed on each crop in cash. Each province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. This revenue system was known as ZAP. Once again, I am telling, a careful survey was made by Tudarmal and of the crop yields and the prices, and he also calculated the prices and the areas cultivated for a period of 10 years. On the basis of that data, the tax was fixed on each crop in terms of cash. Each province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for the individual crops, and this revenue system was known as ZAP. It was prevalent in areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land and keep very careful account, but this was not possible in places like and Bengal. Then in some areas, the zamindars they exercised a great deal of power, and this led to the exploitation by the Mughal administrators, and this drove to the people to rebellion. Sometimes the zamindars and the peasants of the same caste rebelled against the Mughal authority, and the peasants also revolted and they wanted changes, and they challenged the stability of the Mughal emperor. And by the end of the 17th century, things had started to change. There is also a mention of Akbarnama and Ane Akbari. Akbar ordered one of his close friends and courtiers, Abul Fazl. We all know that Akbar had 9 jewels in his court. Now, Abul Fazl wrote a 3-volume history of Akbar's reign titled Akbarnama. The first volume dealt with Akbar's ancestors, the second volume dealt with the events of Akbar's reign, and the third volume is the Ane Akbari. Now, this deals with Akbar's administration, the army, the household, the revenues, and so on. It also provides a rich detail about the tradition and the culture of the people living in India. And the most interesting aspect about this is its rich statistical details about things like crop, yields, prices, wages, and revenues. Next, we will have a closer look about Akbar policies. Now, the Abul Fazl, he has discussed in his book Akbarnama, and he tells that the empire was divided into provinces, and which was called as subas. Okay, the empire was divided into provinces called as subas, and each was governed by a subadar who carried out both military and political functions. This province or each province had one financial officer known as Diwan. So we have a Subedar, we have a Diwan who is responsible for finance, who is a finance officer. Now for the maintenance of peace and order, the Subedar was supported by other officers also. And these were the Bakshi, that is the military paymaster, the minister in charge of religious patronage, that is Sadr, and then there is military commanders named Faujdars and the town police commander known as the Kotwal. So these were the designations: Kotwal, Faujdar, Sadr, Bakshi, Subedar, and so on. Then there is also a mention of Noor Jahan's influence in Jahangir's court, and how we will be discussing this in the class. We will be reading it out. Now, next we will understand how Akbar had a very broad, what do we say, a broad outlook about various religions. He was somebody who had a great tolerance for other religions. Now, while Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri, he started discussions with the Brahmins, Jewish priests, ulamas, and the Zoroastrians. There is a picture which is given in the book also where you can see people sitting and discussing. This took place in a hall type of thing called as Ibadat Khana. Now, Akbar was very interested in the social customs of others. Okay? And he realized that religion created disharmony because of the excess rituals which were there, and this led to an idea of Sulh-e Kul or universal peace. So, Sulh-e Kul is universal peace, and he believed in the tolerance of all religions and focused on honesty, justice, and peace. So, this is one very good feature about Akbar's reign. Now we have in the book how the Mughal Empire started to decline. The administrative and the military efficiency of the Mughals led to a great economic prosperity in the beginning. International travelers described India as a land of wealth, but there was poverty also. Now, documents from Shah Jahan reveal that there were 445 mansabdars out of 8,000, and they received 61.5% of the total revenue as salaries. So you can imagine 445 mansabdars receiving 61.5% of the total revenue. Now this created a lot of disharmony. The Mughal emperors and the mansabdars, they spent a lot of money on incomes and goods. Now this benefited the artisans and peasants who supplied them with goods, but the investment that these people made was less because they had less money in their hand. The poorest among them lived from hand to mouth, while the rich people started to earn huge profits. And slowly, the Mughal elite they became very powerful in the late 17th century. The authority of the Mughal emperors declined, and their servants they emerged as powerful, started getting powerful. They started to constitute their own independent new dynasties, and they held command over provinces like Hyderabad and Awadh. They are, no doubt they recognized the Mughal emperor who was there in Delhi as their master, but by the 19th century they were independent political entities. So there was a decline of the Mughal emperors, and by the 19th century they were at a very low post. This is all in the third module. The details about Noor Jahan and Sulh-e Kul will be dealing in the live classes. Thank you and Jai Hind.